right, girls. Today we are going to learn about Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, can you all remember? I highlighted that I will be teaching you all Bloom's taxonomy today. Okay, so this is the taxonomy, the information of the taxonomy. I hope you all can see the screen. Background information. In 1957, Benjamin Bloom, with collaborators Max Engelhardt, Edward First, Walter Hill, and David Krathwohl published a framework for categorizing educational goals, taxonomy of educational objectives, familiarly known as Bloom's taxonomy. This framework has been applied by generations of K-12 teachers and college instructors in their teaching. Okay, so this person, Benjamin Bloom, invented a certain formation in the education system, how to evaluate a child's knowledge, how to implement certain categories of subjects into an individual's mindset. The framework elaborates of 6 major categories. They are knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Okay, like I taught you last time, a child's potential, human's potentiality, the capability of grasping knowledge is divided into 6 major categories. They are knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. The categories after knowledge were printed as skills and abilities, with the understanding that knowledge was the necessary precondition for putting these skills and abilities into practice. Okay, so to grasp a certain field, to grasp up a certain field, knowledge comes into hand. You need to know what the field is about. Okay, so that consists in the part of knowledge. While each category contained subcategories, all lying along a continuum from simple to complex and concrete to abstract, the taxonomy is popularly remembered according to the 6 main categories. Okay, so these 6 main categories of knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Okay, so it evolves, it blends through a person's ability to grasp knowledge, the grasp certain information is blended through these 6 categories. The original taxonomy is implemented in 1956. Here are the author's brief explanations of these main categories from the appendix of taxonomy of educational objectives. Now we are going into knowledge. It involves the recall of specifics and universals, the recall of methods and processes, or the recall of a pattern, structure, or setting. Okay, now when it comes to knowledge, Bloom's taxonomy teaches, implements how to input a certain knowledge, how a teacher should input, how an adult should input certain knowledge into the student's mindset. Comprehension. It refers to a type of understanding or apprehension such that the individual knows what is being communicated and can make use of the material or idea being communicated without necessarily relating it to other material or seeing its fullest implications. Okay, now, as you know, what is comprehension? It's just reading and understanding. This field also implements on how to read a certain description of a subject. Now, when it comes to science, when it comes to history, when it comes to certain comprehension passages in English, geography, All right. So those can be implemented through understanding, okay, reading, referring, and understanding. All right. So this is implemented through Bloom's taxonomy 2. Application refers to the use of abstractions in particular and concrete situations. Okay, now application, how you apply, how you put out your answers, how you now I like the thesis I gave you. Okay, so that is applying to a certain under certain questions. Analysis represents the breakdown of a communication into its constituent elements or parts, such that the relative hierarchy of ideas is made clear and and related text are made explicit. Okay, that's where you analyze your document, or the synthesis involves the putting together of elements and parts so as to form a whole. Okay, the synthesis is where you abstract, you organize your particular answer. Okay, so you put everything together and see whether the answer suits the question. Okay, now there are some who write pages and pages, but they get pretty little marks. Okay, they don't get much marks. Okay, so that's where you have to involve your synthesis. All right, you have to make sure that your answers suit to the construction of the sentence. Evaluation. Blenders' judgments about the value of material, sorry, for given purposes. Now, evaluation is where you come to a decision whether your answer is correct or wrong. Okay, so that's the six definitions, six explanations of Bloom's taxonomy. There's a thing called a revised taxonomy, which was created in 2001. Okay, other than Bloom's taxonomy, a revised taxonomy had been recreated to prove to make a suitable educational structure. Okay, to like we have to like as technology and time increases, as technology develops, we the educational system, okay, also should develop. Okay, so that's where the revised taxonomy comes into hand. Curriculum theorists and instructional researchers and testing and assessment specialists published in 2001 a revision of Bloom's taxonomy with the title A Taxonomy for Teaching, Learning and Assessment. This title draws attention away from the somewhat static notion of educational objectives in Bloom's original title and points to a more dynamic conception of classification. Okay, now, regardless of Bloom's taxonomy, a revised taxonomy had been recreated to suit the objectives of an educational system. The authors of the revised taxonomy underscore this dynamism, using verbs and gerunds to label their categories and subcategories rather than the nouns of the original taxonomy. These action words describe the cognitive processes by which thinkers encounter and work with knowledge. Okay, now these are objectives used when creating your lesson plan. Okay, when you're analyzing, when you're judging a certain lesson, a certain subject. Okay, so now can you remember in the pyramid of Bloom's taxonomy there was remember?
Yes.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So instead of remember, you can implement recognizing and recalling. Okay. So you judge in your objective plan. you analyze, you implement, you highlight, okay, whether the lesson is recognized or recalled by the student when you're teaching a certain subject or a certain lesson. Understand, okay, instead of the word how can you judge a child's understanding? Okay, so the words are interpreting, exemplifying, classifying, summarizing, inferring, comparing, and explaining. Okay, so these objectives can be used to create your lesson plan in a certain beautiful way. Okay, now I said before, now before you start any subject, now for this was I started a lesson plan and I'm teaching you according to that. Okay, so each field of education, each category of education should have a plan, a pre-plan. That pre-plan is called the lesson plan. Okay, so these objectives should be implemented in your lesson plan to make sure whether or not the student is understanding your subject when you're teaching. Apply. Okay, the words that can use instead of for regard of apply is executing, implementing, analyze, okay, differentiating, organizing, attributing, evaluate, that means to check or to critique, create, then comes your final product, creating, generating, planning, and producing. Okay, now these objectives are used to see whether or not a child, whether your lesson was successful or unsuccessful. Okay, now if it's unsuccessful, you have to use have to make lesson plans. Not only one, you have to make about 2 lesson plans to see what suits the child. Now when you're teaching in a school exactly for 40 students, okay, so each student is different from one another. Okay, fast learners, there will be kinesthetic learners. Okay, so you have to choose the method of your teaching and create a lesson plan that will suit the entire class. Now, if that lesson plan doesn't work out, we have to have backup plans. Okay, so in my school, they taught me how to make backup plans. Okay, so that's where you take a group of students who don't understand, and then recreate, like implement several strategies, several methods to understand the knowledge, the content of your lesson, the content of your lesson that you're doing. Did you all understand that part?
Yes.
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay. All right, moving forward. In the revised taxonomy, knowledge is at the basis of these 6 cognitive processes. But its authors created a separate taxonomy of the types of knowledge used in cognition. All right, so apart from those, some other facts have been created to for the betterment of the student. Factual knowledge, knowledge of terminology, knowledge of specific details and elements. Okay, now like I said before, you have to have 2 lesson plans. One, if you do if the first one fails for slow learners and special needs children, there might be special needs children in your class, then you have to proceed with your backup plan, lesson plan. Conceptual knowledge, knowledge of classifications and categories, knowledge of principles and generalizations, knowledge of theories, models, and structures. Okay, so conceptual knowledge is giving a very detailed knowledge to the entire class. Okay, so you can implement theories, you can implement models and structures, you can implement principles and generalizations, classifications and categories. Okay, so you can highlight your lessons through conceptual knowledge. Procedural knowledge, knowledge of subject specific skills and algorithms, knowledge of subject specific techniques and methods, knowledge of criteria for determining when to use appropriate procedures. Okay, so procedural knowledge implements on how structural your teaching is. Okay, so you can use subject specific techniques or methods. Okay, you can, these are more related to practical lessons. Metacognitive knowledge, strategic knowledge, knowledge about cognitive tasks, knowledge about cognitive tasks, including appropriate contextual and conditional knowledge. Self-knowledge. Okay, so now, like I said before, you can ask open and closed type questions to check the metacognitive skill of many students. Okay, so strategic knowledge implements where and how, what are the strategies, what are the different kinds of methods you use in your teaching. Knowledge about cognitive tasks, including appropriate contextual and conditional knowledge. Okay, that's where you, now if it's a kindergarten, you have a lesson with play. Okay, learn through play. And self-knowledge is where you tell a person to read and then you ask what is happening in the certain context, certain text. Okay, so whereas the child has to read, understand, and put out what is mentioned in the context. Okay, so that is what they call self-knowledge. Then others will learn what is implemented, what is mentioned, what is highlighted in the certain context. Why do we use Bloom's taxonomy? The authors of the revised taxonomy suggests a multi-layered answer to this question, to which the author of this teaching guide has added some clarifying points. Okay, now these are the reasons of why one should use the Bloom's taxonomy when teaching a certain subject. Objectives or learning goals, learning tools are important to establish in a pedagogical interchange so that teachers and students alike understand the purpose of that interchange. Organizing objectives helps to clarify objectives for themselves and for the students. Having an organized set of objectives helps teachers to plan and deliver appropriate instruction, design valid, design valid assessment tasks and strategies, and ensure that instruction and assessment are aligned with the objectives. Okay, now why do we have objectives? To plan a successful lesson. Okay, so why are objectives implemented, Rasmina? Why are objectives implemented? Can you explain? I hope Rasmina is there.
Yes, miss.
So can you explain why one should use the Bloom's taxonomy, the objectives of Bloom's taxonomy, darling?
To establish in a pedagogical interchange so that teachers and students understand the purpose of that interchange.
What is the interchange? What do you mean by interchange? Darshani, can you tell me what is interchange, darling? Do you understand the meaning, the whole purpose of the word interchange?
No, ma'am.
No.
No,
Okay, the interchange is where the teacher explaining the lesson and the student interacting with the teacher to understand that lesson taught by the teacher. Okay, so when the teacher outputs the lesson, okay, so in the interchange is the input. All right, whether or not the lesson is successful, whether or not the students were able to grasp, whether or not, now when you teach school students especially, they will have so many questions to ask, very lots of questions. Okay, so if you would have experienced it, I'm telling you, they will have many doubts, they will have lot of unwanted doubts too. So the interchange is where you clarify their doubts one by one. Okay, like I said before, you should not ignore inappropriate questions. Okay, if they are going out, make sure you answer that question and get them back into the lesson. Okay, so there are certain ways, there are certain strategies to do that. If you are an experienced teacher, you will know how to do that. But if you're a new teacher, you can learn how to do that. All right, so interchange is where you output a certain knowledge and the input, the grasping of that certain knowledge taken by the students is that interchange. Is it clear now?
yeah, ma'am.
Yes. Razmina, did you understand what interchange is?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So here, having an organized set of objectives also helps teachers to plan and deliver appropriate instruction. Okay. Now when you're entering a certain institution, you're a first time teacher, as a first time teacher. Okay, so that's where you'll have fear, you'll have nervousness. Okay, so but if you plan your lesson well, if you are well prepared before you enter class, then you will have the confidence of outputting a certain subject, of teaching any amount of students. All right. So planning is the most appropriate one, the most important part when it comes to teaching. All right. So you have to plan a certain lesson. Okay. So each school, each institutions implement these lesson plans to help the teacher as well as the student to uh, have a good output input relationship between each other. All right, so these are the taxonomies of Bloom's. So is there any doubt to be clarified? Are there any doubts, darling? Ruma, did you understand?
Yeah,
Ma'am, I understood a little bit.
Okay, what are the parts that you didn't understand, Angel? I'm sorry, I was teaching kindergarten from morning, so I'm in that tone.
Ma'am, why do we use Bloom's taxonomy?
We use Bloom's taxonomy because it's the most established method of having a relationship between student teacher. Okay, the output input method. Okay, because it teaches lesson plans, it teaches you how to make a lesson plan, it teaches Bloom's taxonomy teaches what and what you should do to make a lesson plan, what are the words, what are the strategies. Okay, so there is a vast what do you call it, vast theory in Bloom's taxonomy. This is just a part, this is just through scratch I gave you. Okay, but there's a vast syllabus on Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, so if you're going deep into it, you will find the necessary details. You will find the importance of Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, I'm not going very deep into it because the syllabus of Bloom's taxonomy is very vast, very long. All right, this is just the basic I gave you all. Okay, so if you, I sent the PDF, right? The handout. Okay, so rather than keeping the handouts in your phone or laptops, I would like you all to take printouts. Okay, because you all can always go through the PDF version, right? So if you have a physical like touch with the what do you call that, handouts, I send you all, then that's better. Because I also take printouts. I know you can't go out, but if you can go out, like, and take some printouts, so that would be better, right? Because sometimes the laptop might get crashed. Now today my laptop, I'm still having trouble with my laptop. Sometimes the data might go off of your phone. So it's better to have a printout version. Printed version of the theories I give you, dear. Can you all get printouts? Are you all able to?
Yeah, ma'am, for
Yeah,
the
ma'am.
next class.
Possible? No, not only for these, darling. Not only these. The previous ones I sent you all, did you all take out the printed
Yes.
versions? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Is it only Razmina who took out the printouts?
Ma'am, I'll take it. I'm having it
Okay.
in my phone.
No, darling, I won't rather advise you to keep it on the phone now. I also have taken out printouts of each document of
Okay.
school, separately, school separately, that I have taken out printouts. So can't say no any moment, then how are you going to take the documents? All right, so please make sure
Okay.
that you take out printed versions of the theories of the handouts that I give you.
Okay, ma'am.
All right, so are there any more doubts?
Okay. No, ma'am.
Okay, so now what are the specific details in Bloom's taxonomy? How is Bloom's
Ma'am?
taxonomy implemented? Through what? Can you hear me?
Yeah, ma'am.
How is Bloom's taxonomy implemented to a structural education? How is it used in a structural education? What are the objectives implemented by Bloom, the taxonomy? What are the main categories of objectives? Ruma, Rasmina, can you tell me, dear? Uma Darshani? What are the 6 main categories of the taxonomy implemented in a lesson, in a structural education?
Create.
The
Create,
pyramid, can
evaluate.
you all remember the pyramid?
Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes, so what comes
Create,
first?
evaluate, analyze, apply, understand,
Analyze.
remember.
No,
Remember.
first comes remember.
Okay.
Okay, first you remember.
Understand, apply,
Analyze, evaluate.
Analyze,
analyze,
evaluate, create.
evaluate,
Yes,
create.
okay. So the output is the creation, is the creativity of what you implemented in a educational structure. All right. So can Ruma tell me what are the words implemented in a lesson plan? What are the words that can be used to structure an objective lesson plan, objected lesson plan?
Object lesson plan.
Okay, when you're planning your lesson, when you're writing your lessons, what are the objectives that can be used?
Summarizing.
No.
Say to sketch.
Yeah, summarizing. Okay. Summarizing is correct, darling. I'm sorry.
Excuse me, miss.
Yeah, darling.
Miss, the page which you sent now, it's not getting open in my phone, miss.
Uh,
Yeah.
the handout
Yes.
Yeah.
are all having that problem.
Yes.
Yeah, ma'am.
Bloomer?
I'll see, ma'am.
It's a presentation actually, a PPT I sent.
Yeah. It's not getting open, like to view or
Coming,
anything.
ma'am.
It's not coming.
It's coming for me.
It's coming for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ruma, you're getting it right?
Yeah.
Okay. The others?
No.
What shall
No,
we do?
ma'am.
Then wait. I'll try to edit it and resend it again. I thought everyone would have received it. Okay. Now, because I shared the screen, you'll be able to see, right?
Yes.
Let's see what I can do.
Miss, can't you change it to PDF file?
Shall I change it to PDF then?
Yes.
Wait, darling. Let me try. All right, now did you receive it? Check it up. Now I send it to the group. Rasmina, Ruma, sorry. Rasmina Madashani, did you receive the file? The document?
Yeah, ma'am.
Got it,
Yeah,
no?
Yes, miss. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Ruma, tell me, when was Bloom's taxonomy implemented? Ruma, can you please tell when was when did Bloom introduce the taxonomy? When did Bloom discover this taxonomy?
1956.
In 1956.
In 1956. Okay. Why is this highlighted? Why is this implemented? Why do we use Bloom's taxonomy? For what reason do we use this taxonomy? Now you can just teach, no, why have a lesson plan? Why have this systematic thing and trouble yourself, crack your brains, think for words? You can just output your lesson, no? Why aren't we doing so? Why aren't we doing like that? This also I
Categ-
wrote about 3 lesson plans because you all don't talk also, no? So it's like me answering to my own self.
By generation teachers and
What is it, Uma darling?
Categorize educational goals.
goals.
Like how?
Like
Educational objective.
in a systematic manner.
Very good. Okay, so we use this taxonomy to implement, to have a systematic output, whereas
Miss,
it will help. Yes,
or
darling?
for putting the skills and abilities to practice.
Yes, for putting skills and abilities to practice. Okay, because not all can teach. Okay, so teaching comes through knowledge and experience. All right, so now that's why they wanted experienced teachers. Why do they want experienced? Have you seen advertisements? Have you seen the advertisements, like the posts, how they post, what they post? What do they post? They wanted experienced and qualified teachers. Why do they need experienced ones? They can take just passed out ones, no?
For a proper education system.
Yes, to schedule a proper educational system. Okay, so now of course they are just taking graduates. Okay, so these graduates don't have experience, whereas their output is a total failure. All right, so but in highly reputed schools, okay, now when I was facing the interview at Royal Institute, I underwent for 4 interviews. Okay, one with the management, with the CEO, sorry, one with the students, then with some of the teachers, then the sectional heads, and finally I was evaluated by the CEO and the management. Okay, so now you imagine you're sitting in front of the CEO and swallowing the spit, like you're fretting to talk because it's the CEO and it's the final interview, and that's where you're judged. Okay, now me having like 13 to 14, 15 years experience, I like when it comes to the CEO, you have to be like this perfect teacher because you underwent so many interviews, and this is the perfect time to demonstrate, to illustrate your teaching skills. Okay, so that's where you